Yeah.
It's been an absolutely wonderful life. I don't know how I could reconstruct it and put any more into it than I have. And I've gotten so much more out of it, and it continues to in abundance to come from my kids and from Diane.
Speaking of kids, Martin Bourne's 3-year-old son Joe has the flying bug bad, and at an age that probably sets a record. Joe doesn't care for any kind of toy except airplanes and has quite an extensive collection of them, which he insists on taking to bed with him.
Sit there as you always have 10,000 times before, but this one flies different, for you know there can be no more. It's night, it's quiet, we're at altitude, and there's not too much to do, so you relax and begin to reflect on what this all means to you. Invariably, your mind will race to those days so long ago as a proud young captain with shiny new stripes fighting winds and fog and snow. You do remember in detail the beautiful flights over plains and mountains and oceans. Back off, old man, order some coffee and get a grip on your emotions. Turn away from your thoughts and look around lest your mood become too blue. For that cocky young man at your right hand is doing some deep thinking too. He's recalling the things you taught him, what you do and what not to do, the jokes you've shared, the laugh you've had, and some masterful reprimands too. He knows you now must leave our ranks and things just won't be the same. It seems so cruel and seems so useless, but it's the law and it's in such a darn shame. His bitterness is short-lived though, and he thinks of the positive things, of the legacy you've given him and how you helped him earn his wings. But now we land and you must go, now he can be the boss. The left seat he wanted is at last, but somehow he still feels a loss. Before you leave and go your own way, there's something he wants you to know, that he's the one who will carry the torch you carried them so long ago. And when he flies telling legends and lies to the member of his own crew, he's not just making up stories, Captain, he's remembering you.
Ode to Joe Bourn. Friends and family were Joe's most treasured possessions. If you were out and about and you saw Joe, chances are he would not be alone. Most likely you would find him with one arm on a friend's shoulder and the other holding a drink or a golf club. Joe once told me, I learned at a very young age people like people who make them laugh. Joe is a very funny guy, and he has lots of friends to prove it. Flying was his living, and he loved his job and his Navy and Delta friends. Maybe a little too much sometimes. You see, Joe's three passions are women, flying, and golf. At times, they were the perfect storm. He took a few bumps and a few wrong turns, but to this I say that if we changed all of the bad things in our lives, then we would never have experienced the best things in our lives, our friends and our family. So I make a toast on behalf of your friends, all of the passengers whose lives you protected, and from all of your club buddies who loved your jokes. We make a toast of peace to you and want you to know that you are truly loved and will not be forgotten.
I don't know, when I was still a kid, I guess I was in high school. We were just run-of-the-mill family. We didn't have any money to speak of, but we were a happy family, and it just happened that when I was in the 9th grade, algebra was my first math course of any notability. And I fell right into algebra, and I loved it. I don't like to put any feathers in my cap, but I had the best grades in our class. And it just happened the instructor was the high school golf coach. And of course, what teacher is not going to say something to a student that is they kind of like? Well, he liked me, and he said, "Have you ever played golf?" And I said, "No, sir, I never have." And he said, "Well, you might try it." He said, "I'm the golf coach, and we only had one golf course. It was a little 9-hole country club. From a one-horse town, it wasn't much of a country club, but it was there." So I started kind of beating the ball around and
in your yard, your dad's yard.
Yeah, and well, I'll get to that in just a second. But anyway, Dad said that if I ever made the golf team, that he would borrow the money to join the club, which I did, and he did. So then I really got serious, and every shot meant a lot to me. Well, one day, I don't know, I'd had a bad round or something. I don't know what the deal was, but I came home, and I was out in the yard practicing my swing or practicing something, and I chomped up a couple of pretty healthy sods of grass out of his yard. And I didn't think anything about it, and Dad didn't say a word. He didn't cut me down or reprimand me or anything else. So what? So I chunked out a few chunks. Well, I don't know, let's say 10th or 11th grade. Well, many years later, when I was with Delta, I'd already done my Navy stint, and I'm with Delta, and I'm in New Orleans. We had Mom and Dad come to New Orleans to visit. And we had a wonderful time, taking the French Quarter and saw all it was to see in New Orleans. And I go out in the yard one day, and Dad is taking one of my golf clubs and has chunked out a couple of big things. I thought I was going to roll over and die. It was so funny, but I didn't say a word either. And finally, I don't know, at some point, we finally, he couldn't help but let the cat out of the bag, and how we laughed. He said, "I'll be darned if I was going to say anything."